All right. Can we acknowledge ourselves for being here tonight? Get the energy moving. And for the video, this is A Course of Love with Earl Purdy. I try to look natural.
Yeah, that was.
Didn't that feel authentic? Right. Wasn't that authentic? How many of you all don't know why you're here? You just come.
I don't.
Well, since we don't have to believe it, we don't have to accept it. Let's go ahead and get started. I got a lot. I got a lot I want to cover with you tonight in the course of love. And anybody that's watching on YouTube, on my website, just jump in there and you'll hear what you need to hear. And the truth is, what you don't need to hear, you'll say. What you don't need to necessarily hear, you're going to say, I don't understand. I'll say it again. What you don't really need to hear, that's not really important, is going to be the thing you say you don't understand. So the thing that you hear that makes sense to you, that inspires you, that is really the purpose of the whole thing. So how can you tell when you're trying to focus in on something that's not really the main point for you tonight?
You won't understand it.
You won't understand. You'll say, I don't understand. And then the next thing that will probably happen is you'll be tempted to try to figure it out. Right? And figuring it out is usually analyzing it. All of those are no-nos. Okay? So in the course of love, we don't learn it the way we learn traditional things. That's not the way it works. So we left off on page 210 if you got the book. And we're going to start at the last paragraph on page 210 in A Course of Love, which is 23-25. And I'm going to read through it and then we're going to go through it. All unlearning opportunities are opportunities for miracle readiness. There is no trick to identifying unlearning opportunities. From this point forward, I assure you, all experiences will be unlearning opportunities until unlearning is no longer needed. So every situation that you're in is an opportunity to unlearn something that keeps you from having peace. It's an opportunity to unlearn some form of fear and conflict. And it says, if you will remember that the one exercise for your mind is dedicating all thought to union, you will keep your mind engaged and you will be less resistant to learning if you dedicate all your thoughts to union. So something just came up that upset me. The first thing I should try to remember to do before I try to deal with it is to dedicate all my thoughts to union. That's the first thing. Then it says, when you feel resistance, and of course your mind will resist, unlearning what it's striven to learn, return your dedication to union. So when you feel resistance, go, I am even more dedicated to union. I am even more dedicated to union because I'm feeling resistance. I'm getting ready to deal with you in a situation. I'm feeling some resistance. So before we even have this conversation, let's dedicate all thoughts to joining, to union. See, unless you declare the goal beforehand, the Course says the goal determines how things turn out. So if you're upset is when you need to declare a goal the most. So if I'm upset with you, then I need to dedicate all thoughts to union with you before we even try to handle what we think has come up. Like I try to ask people in my life when we have some type of a disagreement and we're trying to solve it, which usually means, how can I get you to see it my way? Right? Then we're going to dedicate all thoughts to union. I've never been in a relationship where we couldn't get over any obstacle that came up between us if we wanted to be together. I've never been in a relationship where we've overcome any challenge that's come up if one of us didn't want to be together. I don't know about you, but that's my experience. Because if one of us do not want to be joined, then that person whose goal is to not join is going to use everything that's being said to justify separation. And the person that wants to stay connected is going to take everything that's being said and see if they can somehow see it in a way that they can stay joined and connected. So dedicate all thoughts to union first. That also applies to abundance, right? I need to dedicate all thoughts to union with my abundance. I need to dedicate all thoughts to union with my freedom. I need to dedicate all thoughts to union. So I see I'm on his schedule again. Yep. His schedule is every Thursday at the exact same time as my class to do the yard. All right. So this will give me opportunity to dedicate all thoughts to union. Nobody said I had to say it pleasantly. Okay? So, acknowledge your mind's resistance. My mind has resistance. I, Earl Purdy, I will acknowledge to the universe and to my mighty companions that I have a lot of resistance going on, which is a sign that it's some unlearning going on. So if you've got a lot of resistance going on, you have a lot of unlearning going on. You have a lot of healing going on.
Yeah, that's cool.
Acknowledge it, but do not engage it. I acknowledge my resistance, but I'm not going to use my resistance to stop me. I acknowledge my resistance, but I'm not going to engage my resistance. All right. Any thoughts about that paragraph before we go to the next one? There can be questions, comments, ahas, just keep it brief. Yeah.
So that's where the analyzation stays out, right? Because that's where I get tempted to be like, oh, this is resistance. I need to look at it. And then before I know it, I'm like,
well, in a sense, you have looked at it because you acknowledge you were having resistance. See, most people won't even admit how they feel. So the mere fact that you were willing to admit, right now I got resistance, here's the difference. I got resistance and there's something wrong with that. Or I could go, I got resistance and there's some unlearning going on. See the difference? Yeah. I'm feeling resistance and there's some unlearning going on in my life right now. I feel some resistance and boy, I got to stop this. See the difference?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else feeling any resistance in any area of their life right now? Any form of resistance? So you have an area where there's a lot of unlearning going on. And so together, let's dedicate all your thoughts and my thoughts to union. To union with the peace, union with the love, union with the freedom, union with the joy. Okay? All right. Okay. Don't forget, I'm your friendly neighborhood witch doctor. Okay, I'm a witch doctor. I'm black and everything. And not a witch doctor, a what? Witch doctor. What are you going to choose? Which you? Which world? Only you can choose. So I'm a witch doctor. I'm here to help you make the choice for love. All right. I would do a witch doctor dance, but it looks a lot like river dance. So it might be too much.
Hey, Earl.
Yeah.
I just got back from a trip that was a really great trip, but it had some very traumatic parts of it. And it was funny because we took the motorcycle out and we're riding in the middle of this tornado weather.
Okay, I mean, on a motorcycle.
80 miles an hour.
80 miles an hour.
The wind is blowing so hard you're going.
No death wish there.
So, yeah. So what's going through my mind on the back of this bike
unlearning going on. What was going to be?
I dedicate all thoughts to union. I dedicate all thoughts to love. And it was in that same, I dedicate all thoughts to union.
I dedicate all thoughts to love.
The other one was God is but love and therefore so I am. So I'm repeating these things over and over in my head going, you know.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that peace be still sign up there. But it was interesting because in the thing with the roller coaster, this can be a lot of fun, or I can be totally in terror. And either way, it's not, the outcome's gonna be the same.
Yeah.
I'm not in control of this situation. We were supposed to meet my sister halfway. She and her husband were riding their bikes, and she had an accident.
Wow.
And so when I got a hold of her 4 hours into the ride, she was in the hospital. And
how is she?
She's good.
Okay.
She has a new bike now.
Okay.
You know, but it was interesting because then when I, you know, 2 12-hour just really physically demanding days, and I would get to her house, and thank God we're finally there. And I get up the next morning and migraine. Get up the next morning, migraine. Get up the next morning, migraine. And you know, what you just said, whether when you have the resistance, if you acknowledge it and then go on, or if you engage it. So I would think in that circumstance, I was probably engaging it rather than acknowledging it. I mean, because there was a lot of stuff, there was a lot of stuff going on, you know.
I want to acknowledge you for trying to repeat the truth and repeating the truth when you were in fear.
Right.
You know, because to me, whatever you do when you're upset or in fear is your default setting.
Right. You know, what I find though is that I do great during those times of high stress, no problem. I jump right into that, you know, those things that I've learned, and that's part of me. What happens is when that time is gone, I'm safe and sound now. I'm in a house with loving people around me. My sister's okay. And then that's when all hell breaks loose.
So you wait until you're in a safe environment before you let all the stuff up.
Right.
That's brilliant.
So what do I do? Because I don't want to have 3 migraines 3 days in a row after going through something like that. I want to be able to, you know, somehow use what I've learned in the last 10 years to go, okay, I know how to get past that really stressful, physically demanding time. I got that stuff down pretty well. You know, what's my next step? You know, what's the you know,
well, to me, the next step is what you just did. Everything you've done is what you do. You just keep doing it. Instead of stopping, because if you stop, that's when you've engaged.
Right.
So if you go ahead and continue to acknowledge it and feel it, but don't engage it like you're choosing to do, then it's only a matter of time before either you'll stop having the migraines or you won't care.
Right.
In either way, it's a win-win. Yeah, you're like, oh, here's my latest migraine. My God, you know, here it is. I want to, you know what I'm saying?
Right, because it got to that point where I went, okay, I can't take any more of my pills because I can only take 3 days worth or whatever. And I went, if I have one tomorrow, oh wow.
Yeah. Now here's the thing that you could say from the Course in Miracles that's really helpful in situations like that. You know, my migraine headaches are defense against the truth.
We were just talking.
Okay, that's right. It's just, which the Course defines as just an attempt of your ego to convince you that you are only a physical body. Okay, that because it draws your attention to your physical body, makes you forget you're an unlimited spiritual being, right?
Right.
So the whole purpose of the pain is to make you identify with your body.
Right.
And every time you tell yourself that, you undermine that plan.
Right.
And it makes it a less attractive plan to the part of your mind that's creating the migraine.
Right.
So even though it might not seem like it, every time you remember the truth, when you're upset, then you're undermining your ego's whole defense system, which is fear's defense system, which is to make you think you're vulnerable and a victim.
Right.
So you're at that point, to me, where we all go through, where you're saying it, but it doesn't always look like it's having an effect.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Sometimes it's very apparent, and other times it's like, wait, where'd it go?
Yeah, but think about this. It comes up after you have put yourself in a safe environment.
Right.
So just think about that. Like, if I'm really gonna freak out, I'd rather freak out in a safe environment.
Right.
You know, and stay calm and focused when I'm in the conflicting environment, like you were doing on the back of the cycle. Freaking out on the back of the cycle, it would not have helped. No. Right. So you waited until you were okay.
Right.
Then you released it. Brilliant love of self. Brilliant love of self. So the ego say, I didn't get you in the tornado, I get you with a migraine, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? All right, so then you
Right.
turn around and remind yourself again
Right.
that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
It's just my ego
Yeah.
defending against the truth.
Right.
And then after you remind yourself that it's a defense against the truth, then you do whatever thing that symbolically shows that you're willing to be healed, whether that's taking the prescription or doing other things that are physical healing methods. The Course in Miracles says that when you try to heal yourself and you can't, don't try anymore
Right.
and go get some external
Right.
help.
Right.
People forget that. He says because you already don't believe you can do it, which means
Otherwise
that it wouldn't have happened. So
Right.
therefore, you need to admit to yourself that you believe more in the outer than you do in the inner, and then go ahead and get the aspirin, or go ahead and do the aerobics, or go ahead and do the jog, or go ahead and get the counseling, or go see people who do clarity sessions. These are the things that these are all symbolic gestures to show that you're willing to be healed.
Right.
That way you're not creating resistance from your human point of view, and at the same time you also remembering the spiritual. And what's so cool about it is that once you get these couple of things down, then and you start applying them consistently in every situation, instead of looking for different answers for different situations, that in itself is going to give you peace. See, the fearful mind, the ego mind, which is nothing but the mind that thinks it's limited or separate. That's all it is. The ego is just a part of us that thinks it's separate or guilty or afraid. Anybody familiar with that part? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the ego, the part that thinks it's separate from God. That part of us is completely clear that its goal is to keep you in some form of fear. And then the Holy Spirit, which is your loving right mind, the part of you that's still in touch with the truth, you do have a part of you that's like that, that's completely perfect and healed. That part of you is also consistent in its goal, and its goal is to bring you joy and peace and happiness. And then the Course says the only part of you that hasn't made up its mind is you. There's one part of you that wants to, the Course is hardcore. There's a part of the book that says, do you know that there's a part of you that wants to kill you and won't be satisfied until you're dead? And then it says, where do you think death comes from? And I went, whoa, that's deep. He says, what do you think death, it doesn't come from God, so where do you think it comes from? It comes from you. It comes from the part of you that doesn't like you very much and wants you dead. And it's sure about that. Okay? And then it says there's another part of you that loves you beyond your wildest imagination, that never does anything but love you and advise you and help you and will do everything possible to bring nothing but peace to you. And that's what it wants to do all the time. There's no gap in that at all. There's a part of you that just wants the best for you always, no matter what. But then there's another part of you that hasn't made up its mind about which one of those selves it's going to side with. It's like when I was a kid, the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other whispering in the ear. That's it. That's the whole premise of truth. You got the part of you that's afraid, that's telling you what to do, and you got the part of you that loves you that's telling you what to do. And whichever one you side with is the physical experience you're going to have. So the part of you that wants to attack you because it thinks you're not good enough, or smart enough, or loving enough, that part of you is trying to choose the wrong mate, the wrong financial situation, sickness, attack. It's just, what can I do to create catastrophe for you today? Who could be the wrong person for you to get their phone number today? It's looking for it. And then there's another part of you is, how can I bring you as many unlimited, loving, prosperous, abundant, cool experiences as possible today? And then there's me, who's slamming off the alarm clock, deciding which one I'm going to go with. I go back and forth between the two voices, and so I have good and bad experiences during the day, as I define them. You see what I'm saying? One minute I'm siding with the part of me that doesn't particularly care about love or me, then I got to have an argument with my boss. Then I side with the part of me that really, really wants love, and I have a forgiving conversation with my mother like I've never had before. Yes. You see what I'm going all day long. I'm going with the thought of fear, going with the thought of love. So I have an experience of fear or an experience of love, and we wonder where they come from. They're coming from going back and forth within yourself as far as your allegiance to God or peace goes. Everybody clear about that now? You know where bad day comes from now? Anybody don't understand that? And the trick is to get you to focus your attention on the form it took, which is, for instance, focusing on your boss. That's the trick. Rather than going, what is it within my own mind that I need to change so that I won't perceive this anymore? That's what the smart person does. Thank you, boss, for getting me in touch with something in my own mind that needs to be corrected. I've been in resistance with my boss, so I'm having an unlearning opportunity with my boss. I'm going to dedicate my thoughts to union. When I used to work for the telephone company. I was in the first crew of African Americans that was ever hired at the telephone company in Memphis, Tennessee, back when they were finally letting black folk work as hard doing meaningless stuff as everybody else. Now, a more variety of places besides being a maid or something like that. So, what was interesting was that I was then assigned to the crew of what was supposed to be the most racist guy in the phone company. Okay. And so I had just gotten into metaphysics and new thought, and I was just learning about my thought being creative and my consciousness creating my reality. I was what? 22, 23. Was I ever 20? Yeah, I guess I was. The platform shoes. Okay, right. All right, now. Platform shoes, the afro so big, my head was like that. And now I hold my head up. Red, green, yellow, orange, striped pants, bell-bottom pants, jumpsuit. Hell, I was dressed like that last week. I was just gonna see me in my other life. I had platform shoes with goldfish in the heels. But anyway.
All right.
Real ones?
Yeah, but it was expensive. And so anyway, I got hired. I was supposedly working for the guy that was the most racist. I was learning metaphysical spiritual truth. The rest of the crew members would be complaining about him all the day, and then every time he would come up with a new rule that we had to obey that really he didn't make up anyway, he was having to carry out as a foreman, everybody would give him a hard time. And I was learning that I was looking at my own self all around me, and that he was really me in just another form. And so in my mind, that's the way I would look at it. And so whenever he would come up with something that we had to do, I wouldn't give him a hard time because I realized that would be me giving myself a hard time. Plus, I knew that if I would go ahead and do what he told me to do, then he would leave me alone. I learned that a long time ago. That you transcend rules by obeying them. And then you're the first one that's free of them. Like my mother told me to be home at 10 o'clock. I made sure I was home at 10 o'clock. Then she said, well, you can stay out till 11 o'clock. Then I'd be home at 11 o'clock. She said, well, it's okay if you stay out till 12 o'clock. When my buddies who was always rebellious and not wanting to do that, their parents would say, come home at 10 o'clock. They come home at 11 o'clock. Then they have to come home at 9 o'clock, right? And they thought they were really winning. But because in that span of time, I could do anything I wanted to do. Just as I was home by 10 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? It's so funny. It's like it's a lot easier to transcend laws than it is to break them. You know. So anyway, since I wasn't giving him a hard time and seeing him as myself and doing what it was that I was being asked to do, then he would spend no time with me and I would not see him for weeks and weeks at a time. And then when he would come, because I was on a phone truck, which was cool. I was out by myself. I was climbing poles with those little spiky things and going on top of houses. And as a matter of fact, that job is what made me decide to be full-time doing my own thing, because I realized one day when I was up on the telephone pole that I had chipped ice to get up to the top of the pole to try to fix this lady's phone who was giving me a hard time because of how long she'd been trying to get the phone fixed, like I knew about her before 30 minutes before when I was dispatched. So my point is, I'm up there, she's complaining, I'm risking my life. It's cold, it's windy, and I was sitting up there, and I was in metaphysics, and I was sitting up there and I was going, if I got nerve enough to risk my life for a salary for somebody who doesn't even really care, for a customer that doesn't even really care, I certainly got enough nerve to follow my own heart and follow my own dream and do what I wanted to do with my life. So that situation of resistance actually became an unlearning opportunity that freed me to be doing what I love to do, which I have been doing every day for the last 25 years of my life. My point in saying that is that whenever you remember that whoever you're dealing with is yourself, even if you don't tell them that you see it that way, it creates an energy of peace and harmony between you and that person. So here it was, the supposedly being the most racist person at the phone company, and he would come out and check on me, and then he was an Aries, so he liked to be in charge, and I knew his astrologist, which helped. And so then he would like to be in charge, so everybody else would resent him when he would come out and they'd say, well, he's just trying to take over. And I would go, what is it that you want to show me? I'd love to see it. So he would end up wiring the whole house for me. Because he was so intent on showing me exactly the correct way to do it, I wasn't resisting it. So then I was cool with him, he was cool with me, and then the people that was giving him a hard time, he was around the corner trying to catch them so he could write them up. Now, here's the other cool thing about practice. I always hear people tell me, well, this Earl, you don't live in the real world like the rest of us do. That was what motivated me, was the real world that people think that they're in. That's what made me want to study, meditate, practice this stuff. Because I wanted out of the insanity that I was experiencing, but I had to use the principles I was studying to do it. So I saw every day at work as an unlearning opportunity. And so I would always tell my coworkers that I'm going to do what gives me the most peace and what gives us the most peace. That would be my standard reply. What would give us the most peace? So my nickname became Peace Purdy. So I would be working like one time I worked at the AT&T store. I worked at all over the company doing some of everything. And so when my coworkers would call me, they would say, "Hey, Peace." So they would call me Peace. So all day long everybody was saying, "Peace. Come over here, Peace. Peace. Come help me out. Peace. Peace." So again, I didn't tell anybody any of my metaphysical principles, but what they were calling me Peace because I was applying my metaphysical principles. My supervisor, that was the second supervisor. The first supervisor that was the racist guy who wasn't acting racist with me, because I didn't really care if he was or not, because that would have been my own racist thoughts coming back to me, because I'm only seeing my own racist thoughts, and I couldn't live in the South that was that segregated unless I was racist. So I was so racist, I was discriminated against. I was so racist that it seemed like I had to go to the back of the bus. I was so racist that it looked like I had to drink a separate water fountain. I was so racist that I was meeting my own racism seeming to come back to me through other people of the opposite race. All right, so then the guy who was supposed to have been so racist, he recommended me for promotion. So I was the first black supervisor in Bell South in Memphis, Tennessee. And I got to the point I was responsible for the operations of the whole city on some weekends in terms of that's how I moved up in the company, only applying metaphysical, spiritual principles the whole time. And I resigned to do my own thing one day. They asked me to do something. I realized I was not being true to myself, and I had been feeling like that for a while because I walk into the building with my briefcase because I was now in management, because I said I didn't want to be on that pole anymore. Remember I told you that? And the next thing I know, I was promoted. Yeah. So I was the one in the warm van watching everybody else go up the poles.
Yeah.
You know, it was funny. Sometimes I would go to houses and people in a white body wouldn't let me in because they didn't believe that I was actually a supervisor. I was only 26 years old at the time. So my point in saying this is that when I worked another job besides that, still applying these principles, this is what's relevant. The boss that I had, at that time I was wanting to do the Course in Miracles full time, but I hadn't done it yet, so I had just started speaking and stuff. Found out he secretly wanted to be a speaker and lecturer himself, so therefore he would do everything he could to make it easy for me to go out of town to do my speaking engagement, because I went into his office and I'd sit down and go, what is it what can I do to make this easier for you? That wasn't brown nosing. that was exactly what I wanted to receive. So that was what I walked into his office and gave, because that's what I wanted to receive. Once I learned that all I had to do was start giving what I wanted to receive, then that was the big turning point in my being able to deal with the world. And at that time, I was actually selling cable. I was working for somebody else for a while, because sometimes you do what you got to do so that you can do what you want to do. But if you do it with the Holy Spirit, then the Holy Spirit makes it easy for you to do what you got to do while you're doing what you want to do. So sometimes I would take odd jobs if that's what Spirit led me to do once I resigned, because they were about to promote me to a vice president. And I went, you know what? I'm going to resign today, because it wouldn't be fair to you or to me for me to go any further in this job, because my heart isn't really in it. And so I'm not going to continue to do this. But I'm so grateful to the opportunities that you gave me, and I resigned. Had 2 young children, married, had the same thing that anybody else got to deal with, but the one thing that I knew I had was universal law, principle, God, truth. Because I knew either this stuff had to be something that was real or not, but I knew I would never know the reality of it as long as I was philosophizing about it, but not actually ever trying to live it in my day-to-day experience. And that's the mistake that I see most truth students make. It becomes a discussion in a class, but not an actual practical application in everyday reality. We separate those very neatly, even without even knowing it sometimes. You mean, don't even be aware. I'm gonna get you. Even without even being aware of it. So when I needed to have a certain quota of sales, the Holy Spirit would give me all the sales I needed in one night.
Wow.
And then I would turn them in, and then I didn't have to show up until the very next week. But at the same time, I had company. I was working for Cablevision. I walked out. I said I need to allow some money to come into my life, because I had resigned. And I was walking out of Walgreens one day, and they saw that they were hiring for Cablevision sales. So Spirit said, "Go over there and apply." So I walked. That's what Spirit taught. So I walked over there and applied. They hired me. And guess what? How it worked out. Because of what I was doing, I only had to come in once a week to turn in my sales, but I had full benefits, hospitalization, and free HBO. That's why I really got hired. And so I would take the Holy Spirit and I said, "Holy Spirit, you know who wants cable. I don't know who wants cable, so you just direct me." And then I would walk out into the territories. Because cold contact door-to-door sales was a terrifying prospect. Knocking on people's doors, trying to sell them something was one of my worst nightmares. So what Spirit showed me early in the game was that in the situations that I think I'm most afraid, it is with me. And that if I practice what I'm preaching, then I would be directed. So I would get all the sales I needed in a week on a Friday night. And I never got a door slammed in my face. I never had anyone say anything to me nasty. And I met the nicest people you would ever meet, and they all thought everybody else was the problem. That would be the thing that was interesting about meeting people. People are basically good, all thinking that everybody else you got to watch out for. So I was meeting all these cool people. Now, a lot of my coworkers were not having that experience, because they thought differently. And so they got the people who did slam the door in their face and didn't buy the cable and didn't want them to come around. But they didn't realize it was their own consciousness coming back at them. And so they seemed to have situations that were opposite from mine. So they would think I was lucky, and it had nothing to do with luck. It had to do with obeying the principles that I was studying in this stuff. And so when I finally did decide to do the Course in Miracles full time, and mostly on the donation and love offering basis, then there's never been a time in 25 years that I haven't been able to take care of what needed to be taken care of for me to live. But I wasn't jiving either. And I was committed. And I'm still that way. Because I love having the freedom to express myself all day the way I want to. But if you don't love yourself, you won't let it happen. And if you find it right now you're having a hard time staying awake, It's because your ego doesn't want you to hear what I'm saying right now. And it's the very thing that it's okay for you not to hear, because like I said earlier, you will hear what you need to hear. So it doesn't. So the Holy Spirit said, I'm gonna show you that universal law work for you if you're black, from the South, like weird stuff like Course in Miracles, metaphysics, and you're just trusting that the universe will provide. Earl, you're gonna be an extreme teaching example. So if you can do it, anybody can do it, because you're not special, Earl. The only thing that's different about you and anybody else is your willingness to listen to the voice of God, or your willingness to just listen to what you learn from the world. That's the only difference. And when you're upset and afraid, that's whatever you do when you're most upset, that is your default setting. That really truly reveals what you really believe to you. Not what you say when things are going great, but what do you do when things are not okay? Do you really go to the truth? I mean, no jive. I mean, do you really go to the truth? Do you really study? Do you really apply this stuff? Or do you go into victim consciousness and blaming everything and everybody around you and doing a pity party and all the other stuff? Because what you do when you're mad reveals your level of consciousness, and who you choose for a partner reveals your level of consciousness. It's impossible for you to be different from the person you're attracted to. Impossible. Impossible. You're not here and your partner down there. It ain't like that. They're just showing you your own hidden thoughts, and you are showing them theirs. So either they're showing you you're more unconscious than you think you are, or they're showing you that you may be more loving than you think you are. If it looks like they treat you better than you treat yourself, and they treat you better than you think you deserve, then that means subconsciously you love yourself more than you realize. If you think you're this really nice person that's so loving and you're always getting crap, it means you hate yourself more than you realize. You don't like yourself more than you realize. And you need to get in touch with that so that you can start choosing once again. That's why I'm the witch doctor. You with me on that? So the people in your life are mirroring back to you the things about yourself that you're not willing to admit. You had your hand up, Brother Greg.
Well, you already answered it, I think. I was just curious as to time frame as far as, were you studying Course in Miracles, just starting to dabble in it? Were you getting this metaphysical information from other sources? What started you off?
What started me off was getting in. Well, astrology was where it all got started. That's where my spiritual path got started. My father died, came to me in a dream, told me that I couldn't come with him. He was okay. I was about to have some type of incredible awakening. Then I discovered astrology. Astrology got me into this. There was more to this than we think it is, because it looked like there was a plan behind everything that people were not aware of. And since they didn't do their plan, they were suffering. But they didn't realize it was their own plan, that they themselves had already chosen before they were born. And if they would do it, then their life would work. But then they get here, and then they forget, and then they think it's all about just trying to make it. And they forget that there's a divine plan. So the divine plan stuff led me to the idea of reincarnation. You must have some kind of eternal soul if there's a lesson for me to learn. That led me into thought is created. Because if you get into metaphysics and all that kind of stuff, you're going to come up, sooner or later, you're going to come up on the idea that says your consciousness that's creating your reality. I started practicing creative visualization. My thoughts created my beliefs. Everything was one with me. That was what I was practicing on the telephone job. Okay? Then, after learning that I could manifest and not being happy after I manifested what I wanted, which is a stage you have to go through when you realize that it ain't about the things you think you want that's going to really make you happy, but you don't realize till you get them. And then you realize they didn't satisfy you. Okay, then after you hit that level, then you realize there must be something going on within you that's not allowing you to have the peace that you want, because you don't have anything to complain about anymore, because your physical reality has shifted, because you changed your mind. So really the stuff you had to complain about really isn't there anymore. So you're still miserable, but there's no good reason. That messes with your head. Okay, you used to have a lot of drama. All the drama gave you an excuse, and so you thought that there was a connection between the outside drama, and if you could get the drama handled, then you would feel good. You get into the truth, recognize you create your reality, start thinking the right thoughts, the loving thoughts. You watch your reality shift. It's for stuff, because the first thing you do when you get into metaphysics is you want to get all the stuff you've always wanted. You want to get all the toys you've always wanted. You want to get all your fantasies fulfilled. And so what spirit does is let you go ahead and do that, because that's a universal law. So I had an opportunity to get all my sexual fantasies fulfilled, financial fantasies fulfilled, spiritual fantasies, creative fantasies. I was playing on the road with Al Green and Stevie Wonder and Temptations, and I was just doing all this stuff. Everything I thought I wanted to do in theater. I thought I wanted to do theater, and my chart said I could do theater, so I went and started auditioning for plays, even though I didn't know I could act, and got accepted in every play I auditioned for.
Wow.
Okay, had a beautiful wife, 2.1 children. I had one child that was only half. And so I had the American dream and was miserable. Absolutely miserable. But until I got it, I didn't know that my happiness wasn't in it. Okay, so then after that, I got into the Course in Miracles, which revealed to me I had unconscious guilts and fears that I didn't know about that was creating the challenges that I thought I was going through and those feelings I was having. And somewhere along the line, I had forgot about my relationship with God. And it had just become about me and my fantasies getting manifested on my own, which was never satisfied. So that's led to me eventually being the person you're sitting up here talking to right now. So the resistance that comes up is always you having an opportunity to unlearn some limited thought you have about yourself that's blocking you. The cool part is it's already been figured out for you. That's why it's in the book. It's like how to fix bake a chocolate cake has already been decided for you. The recipe book isn't there for you to analyze. It's there for you to put the flour and sugar and everything else in the proportion that the book says you should in order to get the cake. You don't get the recipe book and you go to meetings to analyze the recipe book. You might go to a meeting to see if y'all can bake a cake together, but in truth, we come and we are going to figure it out, and we're going to reinvent the wheel, and we're going to figure it all out on our own, and that's the slow way. Then we forget that we have the recipe, and the recipe says, when you feel resistance, tell yourself you're having an unlearning opportunity. After telling yourself you have an unlearning opportunity, dedicate all thoughts to union. You're going to have resistance, but see the resistance as another opportunity for you to let go of the block. See, this is the recipe. So really what's important is to remember the recipe more so than to analyze whether the recipe actually makes the cake. The universe is waiting to give you an easy life. But love will never force itself on you. How can you tell somebody to love you? They never force themselves on you unless you've agreed that that's what y'all gonna play tonight. And in that case, y'all might do some good forcing. But it's all a game. But love waits on welcome. Love doesn't wait on time. Love is waiting for you to welcome it. Abundance is waiting for you to welcome it. Right relationships are waiting for you to welcome them. You think it's going to take, we think it's going to take some time to get that done. That's the trick. It doesn't take time. It takes welcoming it. So what is our job then? To get rid of everything that keeps us from welcoming our good in our minds and in our feeling natures. How do I do that? Follow the recipe book. But I don't read the recipe book. Well, good luck on your cake if you've never made one before. Because it's like we think we're going to get the result without doing any of the actual application of the idea. It's like me reading about a cake is going to get one on my counter. So if I read the recipe book, Earl, the cake is just going to miraculously appear over there. Are you a recipe reader? Are you a cake baker? That's the question that we should all ask ourselves today. Do we just collect recipe books, which we call our library of truth books? And yet we are mystified that the cake isn't being baked? That's what I found out I was doing. Because you can't get to that point that you let your life become more harmonious until you get to the point that you're willing to recognize you're the one that's screwing it up. As long as you avoid admitting that you're the one that's creating the resistance, that's how long it'll take for you to have what you want. All you have to do is just like Eileen was saying, I got to admit to myself that, I'm doing this to myself. It's part of my pattern. I read my journal when I was 12 years old, and I was having the same problems with women in the 7th grade. It was tripping me out when I was reading my journal. I was like, I was saying that when I was 12? I just said that last week. Because we all have those special areas that we use to keep us separate from God. And we call those our pattern areas. That's nothing but the way I'm trying to hold on to my old self-image at all costs. And y'all all are so over it. You all are so over it. You all are so over it. You've already been rescued. You're already in a new level of consciousness. You're already in a new reality. But you're like somebody who's still hallucinating. So you still think you're where you used to be. You know what I'm saying? And I'm in like the waiting area trying to tell you that you're in somewhere else before you actually entered the country. You're not like regular people. You're not normal. You really aren't.
All right. Yay.
Okay, you really aren't. You really aren't. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God thank God people call you weird. Thank God people think you're strange. Kind of become a little alarmed if the world likes you a little too much. You know what I'm saying? Now you learn how to fake it because we all learn as we awaken to become sincere actors. So you act just like everybody else, but you don't think like them. So that you can bring your consciousness into that situation. That's why you're there at that job. Is to bring your consciousness of this truth into that situation. And once I knew that, even though I was supposed to have the challenging boss, but since I knew that, then I walked into that office with an entirely different attitude than my coworkers did. And then every situation that caused me stress, I was lifted out of it. Because of the way I thought. And my willingness to take responsibility for what I was going through on the job. There's nothing magical about this. I love it how they say magic is based, what we see as magical is just basically what science has not gotten to the point that it recognizes yet. Because listening to an iPod would have been magical to my grandmother. Even though the same laws that create iPods was happening in the 1800s. You know what I'm saying? So you got to, we are the generation that is learning telepathy and joining minds so that we can never feel alone and be in instantaneous communication with each other all the time. And all of our communication apparatuses are nothing but a reflection of what's happening in our consciousness. That's why something can happen on the other side of the world and we know about it in 2 seconds. It's because the outer is now beginning to reflect the one mind. And the people that's going to go through the greatest challenges are the people who are still trying to live according to the old crumbling paradigm. But they'll be okay too. It's just that they're going to take a little while longer before they too make the decision to choose to take some responsibility and realize that they are unlimited spiritual beings and not little human beings out here trying to make it with the little limited pie that everybody's trying to get a piece of. The other thing is, you learn if you want to get a situation solved, and I'm learning this right now, you can't do it if you see the person as separate from you. I couldn't see my boss as being anything other than another aspect of myself, or I would have never experienced my boss in a peaceful way. So you got to give up this idea that there is an opponent out there that you are in conflict with, that you are trying to change their mind. That perspective will keep you in arguments and conflicts with people for as long as you keep it. If you want to see it change quickly, go, I'm not different. I'm not different. My partner and I are not different. My mother and I are not different. My sister and I are not different. My son and I are not different. And watch your world freak you out with the shift that it takes. And watch the problems you've been trying to deal with begin to fade and be solved in ways you never even imagined. That's just that one little shift of dedicating all thoughts to union. That's the recipe, folks. Now, do you want to bake a cake or do you want to look at the recipe book? Because you're innocent either way that it goes. It's perfectly okay to do nothing. As a matter of fact, one of the most empowering things you could say to yourself tonight would be, I've heard what Spirit said through Earl, and I understand what he just said, and I'm not going to do it. That would be the most empowering thing you could say. I'm not going to do it. I heard it, but I got this grievance, and tonight I'm not going to let it go. That would be completely empowering for you. Just take responsibility. Don't see yourself as a victim, and you will be all right. Even if you go, I'm taking responsibility for not studying. I'm taking responsibility for dealing with what's going to happen to me if I don't see myself as innocent. I'm just not going to do it yet. I'm still going to try to control, and I'm still going to try to boss people around, and I'm still looking for somebody else to make me happy. I hear what you're saying, but I'm still going to work my plan, and you'll be powerful. But to continue to walk around saying something's happening to me that's opposite to what I want to happen to me will keep you locked in the cycle of fear and anger and guilt and disappointment, broken in two by periods in which you seem to have a good time. That, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Now, Earl, last Friday, my phone fell in the toilet, and it was ruined.
Okay, so there was something about your communication that you need to take a look at. I'm serious.
And so I started freaking out. But then, for a momentary moment, I remember what you said the previous day, and I'm like, oh, this is an unlearning opportunity. And I actually started laughing. But then, after that brief moment, I went back to my freaking out.
Of course.
So
that's okay. Just you know that one moment is going to become 2 moments. It's going to become 5 moments. It's going to become an hour. And then one day you're going to have something happen that would have normally freaked you out, and you would have noticed that you didn't have any reaction at all. And so good. It starts with remembering the truth just for an instant, like you did. Congratulations. It's that. So you saw that your default setting when you freak out is to go for the truth. That's a beautiful thing to learn about yourself. Most people, when they freak out, they become more projectors and blamers and accusers. You didn't do that. You freaked out later, but you took a minute to go, whatever you told yourself from the truth. And that's what you need to hear. Acknowledgement for that. That's what you need somebody to say, hey man, that's awesome. Because that is awesome. I'm like Popeye. I got to the point that I had all I could stand, and I couldn't stand no more. Right? And I had to get my spinach, which was the Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
And so when I get frustrated and things really get to kicking my little black butt, then I go, I've had all I can stand, and I can't stand no more. And then off to the side I hear, then I take my Course in Miracles, and then I kick the stew out of Bluto, which is my ego. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You need your learning the most when you're most unhappy and most upset than any other time. That's when you make the greatest consciousness shifts. When you use it when you're most upset. Yeah. Debbie?
I wanted to thank Eileen and Chris and everybody that shares in here the stuff that they go through in their lives, because I have a tendency to create a lot of unlearning opportunities in my life, and I've been trying to validate myself because I really think I do a pretty good job considering the stuff that I deal with in remembering to deal with it with the truth. But it's so helpful for me to hear about other people's experiences and how they apply it, because sometimes I want to beat myself up because I feel like everybody else has these perfect, peaceful lives. Maybe not perfect, but more perfect than mine. And it's just so nice to feel like you're not alone. Like, okay, everybody, and I think of you as so sincere, and so I know that you're very dedicated to this. So to hear that other people have stuff, you know, and they use the tools to deal with it is really helpful for me. So I just want to say
Thank you, thank you. I really get that a lot because I put myself in the role of being a teacher, so I get a lot of, you know, I say I'm upset about something, and somebody will say, "You, Earl? I can't believe you. And if you still go through that, and you've been studying this long, what hope is there for me?" And that's nothing but an excuse not to apply it for themselves. And you don't know how far I've come in 30 years. You don't know how far I've come in 30 years. You see what I'm saying? So as long as you see me, I'm learning. As long as you see me, I'm learning. So I had to have those exact same, situations come up, and they still do. Where I'm just glad now I am a seeker who found. And that's the thing I'm so grateful for. I found what I was looking for. I found the path for me. You see what I'm saying? So the ones you find, you have to stop seeking and start using what you found. For some people, it's just endless seekers. And they think growing spiritually is seeking the latest book, the latest this, the latest preaching, the latest this. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you gone to that? Have you gone to this? Have you gone to that? Have you gone to this? Have you gone to that? Are you going to go to that next week? I read that book. Right? Did you read that book? Right? Did you read? What about that book over there? You know, it's like they're seeking, so that's okay. But the ones you find, you'll know when you found it, because when you found your path, no one will have to force you to study, to read it, or to do it. Even when you're mad, you'll do it. Even when you want to throw it away, you will do it. Even when it upsets you, you will do it if it's your path. If it's not your path, anything will stop you. Anything will stop you. The language is written in, the masculine terminology, the Christian terminology, whatever. You know, when it's not your path, anything will stop you. But if it's your path, you'll know it, because you will become obsessed with using it, because you will see it working. And whatever that is in your life, then that's what you go do, especially when you're upset. And if there isn't anything like that in your life, your first priority should be seeking and finding it. You know? So, it's 8 o'clock, so I'm going to stop here so that we can do the love offering. Thank you for listening to this tonight. And thank you for sharing. Just like Debbie said, thank you. The thought we want to end on is, I dedicate all thought to union. 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 Take a breath. When you leave out of here, you're going to have a whole lot of unlearning opportunities. You're going to have opportunities to practice everything that you are studying. And what you're going to discover is that it's a lot easier than you've been making it. All you have to do is actually practice what you're hearing and dedicate yourself to union. Whatever area in your life that's causing you some conflict from within, tell yourself, I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. Somebody say it with me. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. You know the situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. It's time to bake the cake. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate all thoughts to union in this situation. I dedicate. Did some of y'all find it hard to just do it a minute? Did y'all see how it faded out in less than a minute? Go beyond that. Go beyond that. Don't let your ego stop you. Don't let your ego stop you. You grab hold to yourself and say it again. I dedicate all thoughts to union. 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 Say what? I dedicate all thoughts to union. Only say it if you want to. I dedicate all thoughts to union. I dedicate all thoughts to union. I dedicate all thoughts to union. 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 I dedicate all thoughts to union. 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 I dedicate all thoughts to union. 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 I dedicate our thoughts to union. 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 Go. Ah. 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 I dedicate our thoughts to union. Give it up, Holy Spirit. Appreciate y'all so much. So much.